What is up, guys? Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to MX Bikes, where today we're going to be reviewing the 2024 Birmingham Supercross that happened in real life, talking about a couple things. So let's dive in, shall we? If you clicked on the thumbnail of this video, you likely see that we're going to talk a little bit about Haiden Deegan and some things that happened with him at Birmingham. I did not go to Birmingham over the weekend, but did get a chance to obviously read a lot of things about what's happened since and everything like that. So if you weren't watching it over the weekend in Birmingham and didn't know what's going on with the sport of Supercross, Haiden Deegan, who is racing 250 Supercross East and arguably one of the favorites to win the championship, had a big first turn crash in his heat race with Seth Hamaker. They came together, got up. Deegan flipped Hamaker's bike off of his and then kind of yelled at him a little bit, and then went to the Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki pits after that to do a little bit more yelling. They both ended up making it through the LCQ, and then in the main event, Deegan went off the track on that Supercross triple that I just went over right there. It was actually a double because it had rained in Birmingham. Kind of cut some of the track. I'll talk about that as well, and that would result in him getting a penalty of 2 positions basically, and finished 9th because of that. But when he was passing into 7th on the last lap of the race, he also put a good little block pass on Cody Schock, the FXR Muck-Off Club MX Yamaha rider. Schock crashed, and in that crash, Schock actually broke his collarbone, so Schock is going to be out for a little while. All in all of those incidents added up together definitely gave Deegan a lot of heat after this event, plus the 2-position penalty coming down his way, and then he actually got a $1,000 code of conduct fine that had to do with him going over to the pits at Pro Circuit in between the heat race and the LCQ. So kind of let's start off by talking about all that, and then I'll get into the race because you guys clicked on the video because you wanted to probably see what I had to say about this Deegan situation. I'll start off by the heat race thing, and it's very similar to what Vince Freeze did at Anaheim 1 in the heat race that caused Hunter Lawrence to go down, which is you have an outside gate pick, you kind of swoop in from the outside trying to, basically block the rest of the field and get the whole shot. And Hamaker went deep for sure. It was a little bit on Hamaker for late braking, I think, because he was behind. I think it was it Romano or Benek? I forget which star rider it was, but he's kind of behind them going into the corner, and then more or less past them, and then hit the back of Deegan, who was cutting across. But I do think that this particular incident falls a little bit more on Deegan than anybody, because anybody who races knows that when someone comes from the far outside and doesn't ever really kind of look in their blind spot, which you can't really unless you're actually looking over, you're opening up yourself for the opportunity to get absolutely clobbered from guys who are late braking on the inside. So this is just a standard racing situation where when you cut over that hard on everybody in the field going to the first corner, you're more than likely going to clip some front tires. That before it even happens. It doesn't matter how good your start is or how good your launch is from the outside. And it doesn't matter if you have a nose on everyone and control the corner. You kind of know what you're doing in that situation. I've raced enough in my life as an amateur racer, and then obviously doing some of these gaming things that I've seen it happen. I've done it myself. I've had it done to me, and it's annoying. And if you're a racer and someone does that to you, you're going to be annoyed just the way that Hamaker was. So I put that more on Deegan as kind of his fault in that situation, but it's not all his fault. Like I said, Hamaker broke late. But the extremity or the extraneous stuff he did after that by flipping his bike off of him, yelling at him, going to the pits and stuff like that is really what most people are upset about. And to me, I don't really care. I like characters in the sport, and I like that Haiden Deegan is being a bit of a character because of I guess his following maybe helps with that a little bit. But he's definitely not afraid to get emotional about stuff and show his character, I guess. And I think the sport needs more of that. But I also think that this is just a sign of him being a little bit young and immature and not reading the situation better, and in the future he probably will not do that. It's all learning. He's still young, and a lot of kids at that age will do that. Myself, having been able to talk to Haiden several times already, doing interviews and stuff like that, he's a lot smarter than people give him credit for his age. He's really good about being well spoken and kind of saying the things that he should say in certain interviews. And I also think that he kind of knows what he's doing with a lot of that stuff because he's been around it for so long. So I'm sure to a degree he knew that going over to the PC pits, regardless of whether a TV camera would be there, someone would see it. And I think that maybe he was just, heated and overreacted in that situation, and it resulted in a fine. Because I don't think that going over there was going to do anything good, even if he wanted to apologize to Hammaker, which it obviously looked like he did not want to. I don't think that in that moment does you really any good, except for maybe save your ass a little bit in the LCQ when you have to race him. But yeah, I think that's a live and learn type of lesson. Now, the track cutting thing in the main event, where he goes off the track and has to avoid some slop around that Supercross triple, to me, him being the only person that was penalized for that is ridiculous, because Bennick did it 2 or 3 spots in front of him and took basically the exact same line, which I forget the rider it was who was between them, but the rider who was between them I thought did it a little bit safer, because he stayed as close to the edge of the track as he could and rejoined right after the triple, whereas Deegan and Bennick went almost through the mechanics area and actually split a couple guys that were in the mechanics area to do it. So to me, that's where it's like, okay, regardless of the acceleration off track penalty, which is what Deegan got, I think that, you're being a little unsafe by weaving through guys like that, and maybe they shouldn't be standing there, but also, you got to rejoin the track at the next available location, and the guy between them, again, I forget who it was, maybe Hardy Munoz, did rejoin right basically here, and then Deegan and them rejoined here-ish, so went a little bit further than probably they needed to. And again, I think that probably all those guys should have been penalized, even maybe Hardy, if I have that right, because he kind of was accelerating off the racetrack. That's what they're trying to not have them do, is they don't want them to accelerate off the track, because if they do, they open themselves up to an opportunity where they could crash while off track while going very fast and take out people that are standing there. So it's a safety thing. That's why they're trying to control people from absolutely cooking it on the sidelines of the track. But that's why he got that penalty. Now, at the end of the race, the running into shock thing, again, I think if all these incidents were an isolated issue, no one would really bat that much of an eye. They'd be bummed for shock that pass resulted in a broken collarbone for him, because I don't think that pass was that egregious or anything like that. But, he runs into him, pushes him out, and then Shock, not able to brake in time, goes over the berm, and that's what snapped his collarbone when he landed on the backside of that berm. It was already broken, he says, from Daytona, but it was not a clean break until that situation, and now he has to have surgery and is going to be out for a little bit. But yeah, then Deegan, after the race, after that happens, he gets 7th. You can see him arguing with John Starling, who's an AMA official, and Shock is right there, and the teams are kind of getting into it a little bit. So it was just a night of incidents and drama and all this stuff that, I think it was inevitable that it was going to happen, the same way that last year with him and his teammate Jordan Smith getting into it. It just felt like at some point, at some time, it was going to be a situation where Deegan was just going to be in some drama, even if it wasn't, necessarily all his fault or his own doing. And that's kind of the way it's going to be for, I think, most of his career, because of the following that he has and the way that people likely want to bring him down a little bit, but also the way that people are going to be hypercritical of him because of who he is and the name that follows him. So to me, like I said, I look at more of all this as he's still young, he's still learning, and these are incidents that, in the future he'll probably handle a bit differently. I don't necessarily have all that much of a problem with any of it, because I like him showing emotion. I like him being himself and not shying away from that, and I think that the sport continues to need personalities like that, to not be afraid to speak their mind, to not be afraid to wear their heart on their sleeve a little bit. The only thing that, you'd have to think about with Deegan in this situation is that as this continues to happen, or if this continues to happen, I should say, if he continues to get into it with riders, you're not making friends, And I saw a couple other people say this, like Denny Stevenson on Twitter, who's a, former 125 Supercross champion, now the class that Hayden's in, basically said the same thing. It doesn't help you to have enemies on the track when you're trying to win a championship, and that's what Hayden is trying to do. He's at the point now in his career already where he's trying to win championships. It's not just about race wins, it's literally going for the title this year. And if you have people that are against you and making life difficult for you every time you hit the track, it doesn't help you really at all. That's what a lot of those guys in the 450 class have learned to avoid. Jason Anderson and Justin Barcia are perfect examples of guys that get into scuffles or, run into guys and it doesn't help them. Like, Jason Anderson's been absolutely cleaned out by Justin Brayton before because of he pushed Brayton off the track, and I think this was 2019, and it probably no, this is 2020 actually, and at the time Anderson was still fairly close in the title, and after it he was not. So it's things like that you just have to be mindful of. If that's the approach you're going to take, is that the guys around you may not like the way that you ride them or race against them, and they have just as much ability as you do to do something about it. So again, I think my stance on it is a little bit laissez-faire. I'm not that miffed about anything that he did, but it is going to create a little bit more drama for him, I think, obviously from a fan's perspective, but also from a fellow racer's perspective. And I think that that's more the problem that he needs to realize is something that in the future that could come back to bite him. But anyway, love to hear what you guys have to think. I know the opinions have been so split on this because a lot of people wish to criticize him, bring him down and stuff like that. And I try not to be a fan of anybody in particular as a journalist of the sport. So to me, I'm not really like I'm trying to take Hayden's side because I'm a fan of him or anything like that. I just look at it as objectively as I can and try to, think of what's good for the sport and what's good for, the drama of the show, I guess, a little bit as well. So that's my take on that situation. Let's talk about the 250 main event, though, a little bit, because obviously Tom Vialle wins again. It's his second win. He's the first two-time winner in this 250 East division this year, and looks really, really good in terms of a championship for him to try to make things really good and try to win this title this year. I still personally need to see him win a very dry with actual Supercross whoops track to say this is, Vialle's title to lose, but I definitely think that we're working towards a level where he's got a lot of confidence, and when you've seen confident Vialle in GPs and stuff like that, that has been massive. Like, when he is really confident and feels the flow of everything, he has been really tough to beat in GPs in the past, and I think if we see that confident Vialle outdoors, it's going to be really, really, really tough to beat him outdoors as well. So my personal opinion of it is he wins Indy. He wins the Triple Crown at Indy. It's already starting to look a little bit like it could be curtains for everybody else, because those guys have got to get up there and win races. McAdoo's got to win a race. Hammaker's got to win a race. Obviously, Anstey has the DNF and an issue there, but he also wasn't necessarily challenging for a win against Vialle right there either. So he's got all the momentum on his side. He's got a big gap on some key players like Anstey and Deegan now. And we need to see McAdoo and Hammaker and Pierce Brown and those guys really rise to the occasion in the next couple rounds to kind of sway the tides back in their favor, because Vialle's rolling. Like, as soon as you get this momentum going, it is so hard to slow it down. It's going to be slowed down regardless after Indy, because there's going to be a weekend off for this series, or for these guys, I should say, before they're actually, no, there's going to be 3 weekends off before they're back in Foxborough. So it's going to be slowed down, like I said, but I just think that he has got all the things cooking for him right now, and I'm excited to see it, because it's awesome to see him come into his own here in his second year of Supercross. Also, shout out to Max Anstey for taking that DNF, which was a mechanical failure. It wasn't his fault with the bike. He took that on the chin so well, I feel like, for a guy that wanted to win this title really bad, and even expressed that, I feel like, in his interview about how much he wanted to win this title. He just gave such a real kind of emotional but like solid interview about what this really meant to him and why this sucks so much, and he also was, I feel like, really, really smart about saying, like, yeah, this is it. Like, I had the points lead, now I don't, and it's going to be really hard to come back from this. Now we've seen Vialle and now McAdoo and Deegan and all these guys come back from that first turn crash at Detroit and be right in the mix of the title fight, but Anstey hasn't necessarily been, win, and then, gets back into the mix of things. So could he do it? Sure, but I think he's even aware, like, I needed to be the solid Max Anstey that I am to get this title, and a DNF is not going to help. And then Yariv Konski, his team manager, came out today with a pretty heartfelt, like, kind of emotional video about, how much this meant to him and how bummed he is that it happened to Max, who's one of his favorite people, and all this stuff like that. So yeah, it was tough to watch, because I think Max is one of the true good guys in the sport, and really, for me at least, always a really nice guy to talk to. But yeah, kudos to him for doing the interview in the first place when he's obviously very emotional, being able to hold back enough but still say exactly how he felt. And yeah, hopefully for him, he's able to click off a couple wins and maybe get back into this title fight before it's over. Let's talk 450s for a little bit here before we wrap up today. Jett Lawrence, another win, first back-to-back winner in the 450 class this year, which seems crazy because it felt like there was a couple guys early in the season that kind of were getting on rolls. Like I feel like AP was a little bit on a roll at one point, and then Webb has obviously won a few rounds, but yeah, Jett is the first guy to go 2 in a row. And now it's I feel like it's time for Webb, Sexton, Tomac, who, you know, Sexton and Tomac really didn't look as good as I hoped they would in Birmingham. All of them need to go into Indy and say, it's win or bust. Like, they need to stop the bleeding on Jett now, not let him get any bigger of a points lead, because then he could start really going into a bit of a management mode at that point. It's not necessarily way gone, but another win and maybe a few more points between those guys again at Indy would be pretty far down the road, I feel like, towards a 450 title for Jett. So they got to win, man. They have to win Indy. It's just the cold, hard facts. They can't let them keep building points. And like I said, with Sexton and Tomac, like Sexton, I thought looked really good in the heat race. We've been hearing that, you know, he's been coming around back to 100%, having more normal weeks after he had the bone bruise on his hand/wrist before Glendale. But yeah, now I feel like we need to see a win again. It's getting too far gone. Obviously, all the drama with him switching quote unquote to KYB suspension, which they're not really supposed to have us know, but Michael Lindsay did a good job finding that scoop out, and they're trying, man. They're trying to figure stuff out for Chase, but it's got to happen sooner rather than later. And then Eli, I feel like his, you know, starts are what's really his kryptonite. But even in Birmingham, like I feel like I saw a couple laps when they were showing Tomac, the speed was there, the go attitude was kind of there for a minute. It was a tough track to pass on, so, you know, it's easy to get kind of stuck a little bit, and it seemed like Tomac did at some points. But that's a track that in the past, based on how gnarly it got, how rough it got, where the lines were and everything like that, that's a track that in the past Tomac, I think, would have really excelled at a Tomac-esque charge through the field, and it just wasn't on the cards. And to me, that is either a sign of, you know, Tomac not still having it all at all times to be able to pull out of the back pocket. And if that's the case, it's going to be really tough for him to do that, you know, kind of ride, I guess, where he doesn't pull it out of the back pocket in this second half of the championship and still win the title. I think they would need some Jett mistakes then for that to be a possibility as we're going down. But yeah, I just needed to see more out of both Sexton and Tomac to feel confident that Jett isn't just going to start cruising away from them. Again, will they win races? Yeah, absolutely. I think both. I really think Tomac is going to win a race this year. I do think Chase wins again. And obviously, I think Cooper is right there in terms of he can do some damage and knock Jett off from a couple wins as well. But in a title fight, man, it's starting to stretch pretty quickly. And I talked with Lewis Phillips on the LVK More Than Moto podcast. Be sure to check that out on your podcast feeds. Lewis Phillips and I discussed about whether or not Daytona was like kind of the turning point of the series, and where we'll look back and be like, oh, that's where things really went, you know, in a different direction. And I think that's still holding true after Birmingham. Like, Jett was, in my opinion, the class of the field there. No one really showed that they could do what he did in that main event on a consistent level. And Webb started with him. Jett walked away from him, managed the gap, and won the race. So those guys need to get in front of him. They need to ruffle his feathers. They need to win this weekend in Indy. That's just my opinion. Cold, hard facts of it. So, yeah. Talk real quick about the 30-second card girl on the track, because I saw a lot of people wanting to discuss that and brought that up. She did an interview with Dirt Shark after the race, and she said she's okay, and her take on it was that they had done the same thing every single race, which is 30 card sideways, go stand in that little nook, and then walk back across the track into the mechanics area after, you know, they go by into the first corner. But she said, I guess she put it as, I guess because the 450 guys are a little bit faster, and because she had to gather the other two 30-second boards that were standing there, that took just enough time for, by the time she was walking back across, they were coming around, and she didn't realize they would be there that fast, which is why she wasn't looking. So, yeah, but not a good look. Obviously, for AMA and Feld and all those guys, they're going to be not pumped about that situation, and it's kind of the second week in a row that it doesn't look good for them based on, you know, the fans getting on the track at Daytona and how rough that looked for the sport. And then this one has gone a little viral as well. We've had the McAdoo situation, which was no one's fault other than, you know, some fabric. But yeah, like it's weird how the last couple weeks of Supercross really have, or, you know, month or so of Supercross really has produced some pretty viral things, but not the viral situations you want. You want Cooper Webb, Ken Roczen, Arlington 2019 viral situations where they basically tie across the line, but Webb got the nose. Like that's kind of stuff that they're hoping for in terms of publicity. Not this. Again, that's something that can't happen. That's something that will probably be fixed very swiftly in the future. And so for those of you that were like kind of confused, why is an AMA official not there standing with her? The guy that is normally standing on the gate with her, if you ever actually go to a Supercross, or you can sometimes see it on TV, there's a guy, he's got like a grayish mustache and an AMA shirt on. The guy that's always standing there, he has a clock or a watch on his wrist that is the timing and scoring that they use for to start the race and to time how long a race is, and he's always keeping track of it on that little clock. And so he'll normally stand there 30 seconds before the board is supposed to go sideways, and then when the 30 seconds are up, he'll point at her, walk off the track with her, kind of like escort her off. But then that same guy goes up into the flag stand to wave the green flag. So he is kind of the escort for her to get off the track, but also the same guy that makes sure that the race is running and you know, no red flags need to be displayed and everything like that. So my guess is moving forward, they will use a different official for that and just have some more, you know, in-helmet communication, headset communication, because they're not wearing helmets, to make sure that doesn't happen again. Or maybe they will just choose to move always at some point the 30-second card girls off the track to a location where she does not have to cross the track again to get out of there, which has happened a couple times. I think the most recent one I can remember, Glendale, she had to walk into a little kind of like triangle where she wasn't fully off the track, and then she had to walk back across the sand, I think it was, to get out of the track. But yeah, maybe they'll change that going forward. Not a good look. Obviously, it did hamper Webb a little bit. Webb himself just kind of said, like, yeah, like I didn't, you know, I tried to avoid her. It was a little bit weird, and I just didn't think about it after that. So hopefully that's the only time that happens, because it doesn't look good for the sport when something like that does happen. But yeah, Jett wins. Tom Vialle wins, second week in a row for that duo, basically to stand atop the podium. They've got a lot of momentum in their series, even though Vialle only has a 1-point lead. But Jett is certainly rolling at this stage of it and looking like he might be the third rookie to win a 450 Supercross title, along with Jeremy McGrath and Ryan Dungey. So yeah, that's my thoughts from Birmingham. I was not there. I will also not be in Indianapolis, but I will be in Seattle in a few weeks' time. So excited to get back to the races, highlight some stuff, and continue to talk about things. Get in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think about those situations. Hopefully you're enjoying the new channel and some of my thoughts and opinions coming back to the forefront as well. If there's anything else you want me to talk about in future videos coming up this week, let me know. And I appreciate you guys stopping by and watching another one here on the Kellen SYS YouTube channel. We'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.